I just watched a 2-hour interview where Alex O'Connor was interviewing Rhett Mclaughlin about his deconversion from Christianity. Now, this kind of resonated with me a bit because my children several years ago exposed me to Good Mythical Morning with Rhett and Link. And dude, they are so funny. And from what I understand, like to be that comedic, you have to have quite an intelligence to see the humor in things and then to present it in a fashion that people grasp, and, you know, for the timing to be right and for your personality to flow, etc. And while I was watching this video, I couldn't help but think of Solomon. Rhett's got this majestic beard, and he has this incredibly beautiful flowing hair, and he's an influencer, and he's wealthy. And even in the video, he states that, you know, I'm in a really comfortable place. And, you know, does that affect his mindset on these things? But Rhett is covering his deconversion, and he mentions something that helps to cause his deconversion that I want to address. And in addressing it properly, it's going to limit my audience. But there is a powerful reason that this has to be addressed, is because it's so real it can't be ignored. And I'm going to have to point it out. So I want to make this power statement. Evolution is not possible because evolution cannot create a mind. And if you hang on with me for a few moments, I will explain that. But Rhett gets into this because he said he picked up a few books that were from Christians who actually endorsed evolution. He's like, wow, I didn't even know this was possible. And so then as he's endorsing, or as he's reading Christians that are endorsing evolution, he begins to open his mind to, you know, this advanced education. And what is really interesting about that is he read a few books that unconvinced him, you know, about creation, but then later mentions that he's not a voracious reader. Now, that's kind of problematic. Like, if you're going to read something enough to change your worldview, you probably want to read on the other side of the fence. And I do understand that the world right now is chock full of evolutionary propaganda, I would say, that is endorsed by lots and lots of smart people. And there's so much of this smart information around. It's hard to believe that any of this is concocted or that it's fabricated. And I can get into that in some other videos, but I want to share with you why this is so problematic. Is because the brain cannot be a mind, and it is not a mind. Anybody that has really dug into philosophy knows this problem. They call it the duality of mind-matter problem. And once you get under the hood of that, you find some serious logical dilemmas that really make it hard to be a materialist only. And it's obvious in the video that this is some heavy-hitting territory, because as Rhett's, talking and he's being free and everything, as he's sharing, when he mentions that there still isn't a really good explanation for the consciousness or free will, Alex O'Connor takes a really defensive posture by, crossing. He kind of crosses his arms and he gets a little tense, because here Rhett's being really open about one of the mysteries of the universe. And this is actually one of the reasons I like hearing atheists talk to atheists, is because they kind of let down the guard and you begin to really see things transpiring. And Alex knows how hard of a concept this is to deal with, and it should make one uncomfortable. But how does evolution even attempt to explain the making of a mind? And so I want to go over with you something that's been postulated, is that some creature with a nervous system, their nervous system just expanded for some reason, and it created a brain. So I will give you that. I'm just going to hand that to the evolutionist and say, okay, you've got a clump of cells that is a bunch of neurons that has chemistry and wiring and firing. I'm just going to grant you that. And we're going to start from there. How does this first ever brain know to create memories? It just isn't going to. Like, the brain might be functioning. It might be shooting electricity around and having chemical reactions and, doing whatever that brain was in whatever type of situation that was. But before it knew to store memories, how did it ever come up with the idea to store memories? The answer to this is going to be, pretty obvious, right? You're probably thinking this right now. Well, it was just a glitch. The brain was experiencing something, and it had a glitch where it stored this imprint of a memory upon its mind. Okay, I get it. So my question then would be, did it store a piece of the information, or did it store a whole complete saturation point of the information? And at that point, we're going to go, well, that glitch had to store a pretty good chunk of information. So none of us know, if you ask us about our yesterday memories, we're not going to have all of the information, but we know we'd have to have a lot of the information. And so that brain, when it glitched, would have to have a lot of the right information. I get it. Perfect. How then, in this young, undeveloped brain, did that first memory not change? With electricity just firing all over and chemicals firing willy-nilly all the time. And would there not be some kind of interacting influence that would have changed that memory to where it actually wasn't a memory anymore? It was a ghost of a memory of some sort. But let me grant you that as well. I will grant you that this glitch gave a complete memory. And then the question is, how does it keep making memories? What was there a timing mechanism involved that just said, oh, now we're going to always be on record? I'm going to grant you that as well. I'm just going to grant you more. So now you have a clump of neurons that are storing memories, storing memories, storing memories, storing memories. And from that, now what do we do with those memories? How did the mind, or that brain that isn't a mind, how did that brain, with all these memories, now have any access to those memories? How did it know to build a retrieval system for these memories? Like, it's glitching them. Okay, great. You've got a glitch that's recording everything, but now you need a retrieval system, which is very, very interesting. And if we have a retrieval system, also we need some kind of valuation system to know we're not just retrieving things at random, but we're actually valuing the things that we're retrieving. And this is where it gets harder and harder, and to an impossible layer where evolution just is not possible. Because you've got these glitch stored memories, and then you've got some kind of retrieval system, and let's say you've got a valuation system. But now here's the question. What are you retrieving and bringing it to? And here's where you just have to say, oh, it's being brought to the conscious. Where did the conscious ever pop up at? When did it come into the equation? Somebody really needs to think through this. If your theory of evolution is ever going to have real weight to it, then you've got to explain where the consciousness came from, which you've never done. But we're just trying to start with the raw brain and it making memories, and now it's got a retrieval system, an evaluation system, and it's retrieving these memories to bring it to what? It gets worse. You're retrieving past memories to bring to a present conscious, and the only reason you would do that is because it's some kind of tool to use for the imagination of the future. Do you see how complex this is? We haven't explained the conscious yet, and now we can't. Where did the imagination come from? Because without the ability to imagine how to use the memory in the future, you really don't have anything. You don't have a mind yet. And it gets worse. All of this is done by choice. And not only that, it gets worse. By doing this by choice, you are now retrieving something from the past to a place in the present, thinking about the future, and the mind never gets confused about which is which or where it came from. To believe that chaos and randomness and explosions and time could create such a precision instrument as the mind is actually just really, really foolish. And I would encourage you not to go down that path. So kudos to Rhett for exploring. But if he would have dug a little deeper, he might see that walking down that path, it is just not possible. And maybe he would have kept his feet grounded on something solid.